Hello there, my name is Lynn Allen. Thank you so much for joining me today for this presentation on making the switch to DraftSight. You are in the right place. If you are thinking about making the move from your current CAD product, whatever it may be, over to something new. And just a little bit of background about myself as it relates to this presentation. I have actually been using AutoCAD since release 1.4. That's a little embarrassing to admit, such a long time ago, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I actually worked for Autodesk for almost 25 years. I was their face of AutoCAD. I wrote all their tips and tricks booklets, and I did their videos, and I've done hundreds of AutoCAD videos. I had a column in a magazine for over 20 years based on AutoCAD, back when people actually used to read magazines. And I've written 3 books on AutoCAD. So, hey, I know about the world of AutoCAD. That's kind of the way I think and the way I talk, because it's been the major part of my career. So if you are here today coming from the land of AutoCAD, hey, I get you. I totally get you. And I have a lot of respect for AutoCAD, a lot of love for AutoCAD, so I know where you're coming from. I get it. But today, we're going to be talking about DraftSight. And I'm going to show you that I absolutely believe that DraftSight first of all, it's a best-in-class 2D CAD solution. It's a great product, and that you can easily replace your current CAD solution with it. So let's talk about that. Let's see about that. So I believe that DraftSight is a great solution for you if, first of all, okay, you want to save a lot of money on your current CAD tool. Who doesn't want to save money? I don't know, unless you've got that money tree growing in the backyard, as I like to say. Or maybe you have a big budget, but maybe you'd like to spend that money on something else. Just saying. And hey, I don't have a money tree. Or maybe you'd like to buy a perpetual license. So we say that a lot in the software industry, but if you don't know what that means, it means that you just want to own that software product. Okay, you buy it, you own it. You don't have to give us any more money each year. You don't want to pay any maintenance fees or subscription fees. You just want to own it. Now, you won't get any more, so you want to get any of the upgrades, right? But you're like, I'm okay with that. That's a perpetual license. You can get that with DraftSight. Or how about network licenses? Maybe you have, you're in a bigger office, and maybe you have 50 users, 50 people that want to have access to the CAD software, but they hardly ever use it. They just need to be able to get to it every once in a while. You don't want to buy 50 licenses, right? Gosh, that would cost a fortune. But you could buy maybe a network license of 10 or 15 or 20, something like that, so that at any given time, 20 people could access that software, which is like plenty because these guys are just casual users, right? That wouldn't be a problem at all. So we still have network licenses with DraftSight, which is another advantage of making the move over to DraftSight, right? So something that your current CAD product may not have anymore. And this part's really important. You are open-minded. You have to be open-minded because guess what? For those of you who are AutoCAD users, you got to be open-minded because this is not AutoCAD. DraftSight is different. It's very similar, as you will see as I take you through the product, because I'm going to open it up. We're going to do a little tour. I'm going to show you the things that are similar. I'm going to help you feel right at home, and I'm going to show you some things that are a little bit different so you can decide for yourself if you can handle that or not, right? But I like to say that DraftSight it's definitely not an identical twin to AutoCAD. That would be wrong. I mean, I worked there for a long time, and Autodesk has worked hard on AutoCAD for almost 40 years, if you can imagine. That's how old AutoCAD is. And it would be wrong to copy it, right? But it is very similar. I mean, all 2D CAD products have some similarity in some ways. So it is definitely similar. And I promise you will feel right at home in no time. And I'll show you why, by the way. But you do need to be open-minded and know it's not exactly the same. Obviously, if you want it to be exactly the same, guess what? You got to stay with AutoCAD. That's if you want it to be exactly the same. Okay, and you don't have time for a steep learning curve and I'll tell you who does, right? We're busy. We don't have time to learn a new software product, and even if I have time, I don't want to learn a new one, right? We just want to slide right into our new CAD tool. We don't want it to be a big deal. And the nice thing about DraftSight is it's very similar to what you're currently using, and we make it super easy for you to make that transition. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute here. So you don't have time for a steep learning curve. DraftSight is a great solution for you. Or last but not least, you are unhappy with your existing CAD and you're ready for a change. Now, I know some of you feel like that. I know I felt like that, and that's why I started looking at DraftSight. So that's up to you. That's why many of you are probably here. So this is our agenda. These are things we're going to be talking about. I told you I'm going to take you into the software. Let's take a look at the user interface, the basics, right? Because if you're not comfortable in there, you're not going to like the software. So let me get you oriented and talk about how you're going to make that quick transition. And I'm going to show you some cool tools that exist only in DraftSight that you're going to wish that you had. You are going to have what I call true feature envy. In fact, a couple of these tools, when I worked at Autodesk, I really wanted them to put into AutoCAD, but they wouldn't do it for me. You're going to want them, I know you are. And then what about your customization? Maybe you spent a whole lot of time working on your customization, hours, days, weeks. You don't want to feel like you threw that out the window, do you? Right? Nobody wants to feel like that. So what's going to happen when you make the move to DraftSight? And we're going to talk about that. And then what's new in DraftSight 2022? I like to keep you up to date. Let's see what just came out the out the DraftSight window. What's new in the product? And then last but not least, which DraftSight product is right for you? Because there are a few different options, and I want to make sure you don't spend any more money than you absolutely have to, and make sure that you pick the right solution for you. All right, so that when you leave this presentation, everything will be very clear, right? Crystal clear. And if it's not, it doesn't matter. You still have ways to find out any information that did not make its way from my brain to your brain. I promise. Okay. Do you or your coworkers feel like this? Can you relate to this? Because believe me, I can relate to this. So if you can't, I bet you know someone in the office who probably can. You can have my AutoCAD when you pry it from my cold, dead fingers, right? And I can relate to that. You've invested, or someone else maybe in your office may feel like this, invested, time and effort from me, many, many years. We won't talk about how many in the product, like the back of your hand. And you've, like I said, you might have customized it and you've made it feel exactly the way you want it to feel. And you can use it with your eyes closed, although that would go badly. But nevertheless, some of you might just love the product, right? At least some of the things about the product. And the thought of setting all of that hard knowledge that you've gained free and releasing it and learning something else sounds terrible because you don't want to feel like you wasted your time. The great news is you have not wasted your time at all, because you can take that knowledge with you as you make the move over to DraftSight. That's right. That part is wonderful. And I will also say this. And you probably don't expect me to say this, but I will say, if you do have someone in the office who is so madly in love with their AutoCAD that they're super closed-minded and that they don't want to make the move over to any other product and they're just going to be super unhappy, I will tell you to just let them keep their AutoCAD because it's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. I can tell you that, we don't want people that are unhappy, and they're just going to be unhappy because it isn't exactly the same thing as AutoCAD. Plus, guess what? AutoCAD and DraftSight, they get along great. So you can move everybody else over to DraftSight. Let this poor person keep their AutoCAD. And because we've had that happen before, where we've had that mixed environments in all different types of offices. They get along great, and then eventually, you know what happens? That person that didn't want to let go of the AutoCAD, eventually they see that DraftSight works great and everybody's happy with it, and eventually they set that AutoCAD free and they're willing to make the move. But let them do it. Nobody likes to be forced into changes like this. I wasn't forced. I just made that decision myself, and it just works out a lot better. I'm just telling you. It's my opinion. My opinion. You're not here for counseling. You're here to learn about DraftSight. So that's enough of the counseling. All right. So this is the reason why you are going to be able to make that move over to DraftSight easily, especially the more AutoCAD knowledge you have. Honestly, the easier it will be for you to make the move over to DraftSight because it speaks AutoCAD. You will see as we get into the software that you can literally type in your AutoCAD commands and DraftSight recognizes them. It's amazing. We'll talk about that when we get in there. So you'll be able to make that transition easily. Once again, the more AutoCAD you know, the faster you're going to make the switch. Bet you didn't see that coming, did you? All right, so now I'm going to jump over to the land of DraftSight and we're going to take a tour. Please hold. So here we are inside of a brand new drawing in DraftSight. Let's just take a quick look at the user interface. You should see like there's no big surprises, right? I've got the command line in the lower left-hand corner of the screen where I like to joke the good Lord intended it to be. But you can move it, you can float it if you want to, you can put it anywhere that you want. You'll see I've got the crosshairs. You can modify those as well. This is kind of the way I like them to look. I've got that UCS icon in the lower left-hand corner, which has a slightly different name inside of DraftSight. It's the CCS icon for custom coordinate system instead of the user coordinate system. That's where you're going to hear me talk a lot about how it's not identical to AutoCAD, right? It's a fraternal twin and not an identical twin. Another example of that, brand new drawings inside a DraftSight. They're not called drawing 1, drawing 2, drawing 3, etc. They're called no name. They don't have a name yet. That makes sense. And this is how, by the way, I know that DraftSight is cool because the brand new drawings are named after a rapper. Oh yeah, no name's a rapper. Look it up, Google it, you can find out. What else? I've got the ribbon, I've got the quick access toolbar. I have, what are these guys? Workspaces, right? We'll talk about those in a little bit. I've got the status bar at the bottom of the screen. So far I'm feeling pretty cozy and comfy. I've got layout tabs, I got my open drawings. I've got this palette over on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm not quite so sure about this. It looks like it's trying to show me some news. You know, I don't need that. You know, incidentally, Autodesk does that in AutoCAD as well. We're kind of used to that. Let's close that. What else have I got on here? What is this? Oh, it's a G-Code Generator. Okay, well, I guess if I'm in the mechanical world, I'm okay with that. But if you're in the AEC space, you're saying, I don't need that, so you'll turn that off. Now, why is that in there? That's because, remember, SolidWorks is the company that came out with DraftSight. And originally, they came out for their customers so they could do 2D drawings. And so it was originally very mechanically focused. In fact, there's a mechanical tab here as well, which if you're in the AEC industry, you don't have to use that tab and you can turn it off if you want. But then guess what? All of these AEC and facility managers and interior designers and landscape architects, all of these other types of customers and other industries discovered the world of, in fact, I'll just switch over to a different drawing file that is a little more AEC flavor, discovered DraftSight and started buying it to the point now that we have fewer mechanical customers than we have in the AEC industry. Pretty interesting, right? And so you just need to know that you can use it the way you want to, because everybody uses lines, arcs, and circles in the same, they all use the same type of geometry, right? So they realize that, and all industries realize that DraftSight is amazing. That's all, that needs to be your takeaway. And so there's also a palette called Home by Me, which you're like, well, what is that? I probably don't need that either. Do you? I don't know, but I'll just show you a couple of examples of what Home by Me does. It's a free product. Take a look at it. It's very cool and allows you to do some basic interior design, some basic exterior design as well. I just thought I'd show you what it does. It's actually a lot of fun to work with, but you know, that's not why you bought DraftSight. So I'm going to close that tab as well. 3D Content Central, that is something that you SolidWorks users are familiar with. It's a place where you can get a lot of free content. I don't need that. I'm going to get rid of that. And then that kind of leaves me with properties. Phew. I'm down to a palette I recognize, and one that in AutoCAD I always kept on the screen. And you can make these guys fly out if you want to, auto hide it. I just happen to have it sitting there and it's pinned. So, but I'm going to keep properties because properties is my friend. I'm going to keep it on there. I will not auto hide it for now. I'll leave it on there. So you're going to set this up the way that you want, right? So that you are happy. That's all that matters. And so that you're comfortable. You don't want any palettes. You don't have any palettes on the screen. That's up to you. All right, let's go back over to a drawing. Let's take a look at the status bar. Let's see if you're going to feel comfortable with the status bar. Now, right off the bat, you're like saying, well, it doesn't have nearly as many tools as the AutoCAD status bar, which off the bat, I'd be like, that's okay. The AutoCAD status bar is overwhelming. But let's see if it has anything that you're familiar with. All right, let's take a look. So the very first of the tools is something called LTB Layer. So you're like, what, Lynn? I don't know what that is. AutoCAD doesn't have that. I don't know how comfortable I feel with that. My CAD tool doesn't have that. We're going to come back to that. You are going to wish your CAD tool had that, because that's one of those amazing power tools that you're not going to know how you live without. All right, let's keep going. Oh, wait, Snap. Okay, we all know that. And grid, and of course, ortho. All right, and just I want you to notice also the function keys. The function keys inside of DraftSight are the same as the function keys inside of AutoCAD. Whew, that's good. You don't have to relearn anything for those of you who are actually using your function keys. And if you are, it's probably because you were a veteran user of AutoCAD. That's how when we were first using AutoCAD, there was no status bar, believe it or not. That's how we drove those commands, those options. There's polar, we're familiar with that. And then eSnap, what is that? This is a perfect example of a fraternal twin versus an identical twin. Inside of AutoCAD, we have O snaps for object snaps. Inside of DraftSight, we have E snaps for entity snaps. All right, I think you guys can handle that one character difference. Am I right? Same function key, by the way. And you'll see later almost the exact same object snaps. And then E track for entity tracking versus object tracking. Once again, I think you guys, for all the money you're going to save, I think you can handle the one character difference, right? And here we get into dimension bounding box. I'm going to be talking about another one of those very, 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 very cool tools that you're going to wish that you had inside of your current CAD product. So I'm not going to talk about it right now. Q input, that's the same as dynamic input, one character difference. Fraternal twin, not exactly the same. Dynamic CCS, instead of user coordinate system, it's called a custom coordinate system, which actually makes sense. To be honest, I think a little bit more than user coordinate system. And then we have annotation scaling. You guys are familiar with that. It works exactly the same. And then as we move around on the screen, you can see the coordinates moving. So standard, you guys should be just fine, right? And of course we have model space, we have paper space, model space, paper space, right? No surprises there. Everything so far should be feeling okay. I hope you're feeling okay so far, right? And we've got the ribbon, and we have, as I mentioned to you, we have workspaces. And I've been working in the standard drafting and annotation workspace. That should be familiar with you, right? You should be familiar with that. Instead of the two different 3D modeling ones, right? The basic and then the standard 3D modeling one in AutoCAD. I mean, who uses basic? Why don't you just use the whole thing? There's just one for 3D modeling. For those of you who do 3D inside of your CAD, your AutoCAD product or your 2D CAD product, which is hard to do, let me just say that. You should really be using SolidWorks. But if you do it, more power to you. You are smarter than I am. And then, okay, I love this. How about Classic? This is a blast from the past. Now, some of you remember the old Classic Workspace where you had the toolbars, you had the pull-down menus. You guys remember these guys? And we used to be actually pretty darn efficient with them. And then Autodesk came out with the ribbon and they took it away from you. Do you remember that? They said, you are not worthy. You can't have it anymore. We got all upset. Hey, it was hard making that change to the ribbon for a lot of people. And they had to work really hard to find it and try to put it back. They wanted their old workspace back. Well, you know what? We didn't force you. We allowed you to keep it in the old way. You did not have to move to the ribbon. And that's one of the things I really like about DraftSight. We don't force you to do anything. So I, of course, in my own workspace, I do like the ribbon, by the way. I did move to the ribbon, and so we're going to be using the ribbon today. Incidentally, I do want to mention to you that I'm using, a light workspace, that the darker workspace is an option that's available on the latest release of DraftSight. And you might remember a while back that Autodesk came out with that gray, right? That all gray. I used to joke, 3 shades of gray. The gray ribbon and, everything became grayer, which is supposed to be easier on your eyes and cause less eye strain. I was never a fan because I found it harder to distinguish the different colors. And it absolutely is more difficult for you in a demoing situation for you to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to keep with the lighter shades. But if I just do a right click right here, you will see there's an option that says switch UI style, and that will take you to that dark mode, just so you know. It's there. It's available to you for those of you who like it. There weren't a lot that like it, but you might be one of them, and it's there for you. Okay, what else have we got going on? I mentioned, the quick access toolbar and all that good stuff. I want you to also notice that as I click on these panels, we're used to them dropping down, right? What's up with that? They're not dropping down. Lynn, does that mean I don't have all the tools that I need to be successful? No, it does not mean that. And the way DraftSight does it, the tools are in there, but they're just higher up on the original panel. So if I click on line, you're also going to see more tools under there. Here's infinite line. What's that? X line. And raise, that's the same command. And then rich line, what is that? Oh, those are M lines. The dreaded M line command, like the worst command in AutoCAD, am I right? I will actually tell you that DraftSight did a better job at M lines than AutoCAD does, although that's not saying much. So you'll find that there are commands buried up higher than what you're used to instead of in a drop-down panel, which actually technically requires an extra click. So, I kind of like it. And underneath polyline, you'll see, they put rectangle and they put polygon, same commands, and then ring. What's ring? I don't know what ring is. You know what ring is? Ring is donut. Hey, I'm not going to lie. I was a little sad that they don't have the donut command. You have to type in ring. Do you have to type in ring? You do not. How are you supposed to know that donut equals ring? You don't have to. This is what I'm talking about when I said it speaks AutoCAD. Look, I'm going to start to type in donut, and look, it automatically knows to go to ring. Can you see that down there? It knows to go to ring. I love that. I don't have to know that it's the ring command. What else? How about purge? Because guess what? DraftSight decided not to use the purge command. What a violent name for a command, right? Named after a very violent movie, like you're exercising the command or something like that. So no, instead they used a nice sweet command called clean. So if I go in the purge command, you'll see it executes the clean command. So you don't have to know the name of any of these commands. You just type in the AutoCAD command and it will figure out the DraftSight command that goes with it until you learn the DraftSight command. Or maybe you don't even have to ever learn it if you don't want to, which is absolutely fantastic, right? That's nice. All right, what else have we got going on? I want to show you what happens when you select any object in DraftSight. Let's just click on an object. You will see that there is this command bar that pops up. You have the ability to do a few things, a few popular things. And if you don't like this command bar, by the way, it'll go away. You can make it go away. But you can zoom to the object that you selected very, very quickly. You can, what is this? Looks like you can very quickly change the line type, change the line weight. You can go into Layer Manager. That's something that I like to do really quickly, but you can also do that from the ribbon. You can take that object and you can change it to the active layer. There's a variety of very cool things that you can do on this bar. You can quickly turn it into a block. I'm just showing you that it's another way to execute some very popular commands very quickly. Once again, you don't like that? You can make that go away. That is definitely another example of fraternal twin versus identical twin. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into the third most frequently used command in AutoCAD. Third, what about the first and second? Okay, the first is undo. Guess what? Works the same in DraftSight. The second is zooming and panning. Guess what? Works the same in DraftSight. So the third is the layer manager or layer command. Anything that has to do with layering. That's the third most frequently used command inside of AutoCAD. So if you don't like the layer manager, you're not going to like DraftSight. So I better take you into that so that you feel nice, warm, and cozy in there, right? Let's take a look at the layer manager. Now you can type in LA to get into that, or you can come up here, I just showed you that you could get it from that command bar. You can come up here, and it's not called the layer manager inside of DraftSight. It's called the layers manager. We will not charge you for the extra character. Okay, let's go into it. Let's have a look-see. And now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I fell in love with the layers manager in DraftSight. I'm a math major. I love grid lines. I can't help myself. It's so much easier to read these layers than it was for me inside of AutoCAD because there's lines that go all the way across and I don't have to figure out what all the icons are. There's actually words that make me so happy. I love being able to read. Remember when they took the words out of the status bar? What was that about? That like broke my heart. Still trying to get those back. And so up here, you'll see actually the same 4 commands that you have in the layer dialog box. New and VP freeze. You'll see delete for deleting layer and activate. Lynn, there's no activate inside of AutoCAD. There is. It's the same as setting a new current layer. And actually activate makes more sense because let's face it, all the layers are current. They're all currently in your drawing. So now I can just select any layer and I can activate it and make it current. Or I can double click on layers just like you do inside of AutoCAD. You'll see almost everything in here is done the same way as it is inside of AutoCAD. You'll see we have layer state. You'll see we have filters. We got reverse filters. You're going to feel right at home. No time at all. In fact, you might even feel a little bit more comfortable in this dialog box, if you can imagine, than the one inside of AutoCAD. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's so nice when you can kind of start from scratch, design a CAD product from scratch, and figure out how to make it even friendlier and even easier to work with than your current CAD product. All right, I think that wraps it up for now. I am going to jump back into the PowerPoint and we're going to keep going. All right. So these are some of the things I was talking about. We're talking about identical twin versus fraternal twin, right? Over here on the left, we have the object snaps from AutoCAD versus the entity snaps inside of DraftSight. Look how similar they are. They're almost exactly the same, but they're not exactly the same. I'm pretty sure you could easily adapt to this, but you know, they're there, right? The options are there. Now, another one of the great things about DraftSight is that it does read and write DWG files, and it does a great job at it. That's why I said you can have AutoCAD and DraftSight in the same office. You can work with clients that also have AutoCAD, no problem. The DWG files work great together. Same with template files, DWT and DXF files, and so on and so forth. They all play nicely together, which is super, super important because you're going to end up working with somewhere along the line, someone's going to have regular AutoCAD. It's just the way of the world, right? And just to kind of prove to you and talk about the data integrity of DraftSight, over here on the left, we have, if you do a save as inside of AutoCAD, I want you to note that you can save all the way back to AutoCAD release 14. Now, I'm not saying 2014, I'm saying release 14. That was a long time ago. It was like in 1995 or something like that. I think it was 1995. It was a long time ago. Let me just say, it was a long time ago. So I don't know who's still using AutoCAD release 14, but someone out there was using it. You could save all the way back inside of AutoCAD to release 14. You can save DXF files, you can save template files, and so on and so forth. But take a look at how long the save as list is inside of DraftSight. It is seriously long. In fact, you can save even further back than you can inside of AutoCAD. You can save back to release 12. And that's like, I don't know, that's like the early 90s. So that's even further back, which is pretty darn impressive. And once again, I don't know who's still using R12, but someone out there might be using it. And I can tell you a story too, where when I was working for Autodesk, I was doing a presentation to, I don't know, hundreds of people, and somebody came up to me and they said that they had DraftSight in their office along with AutoCAD, and I was like, oh, that was interesting. So why do you have DraftSight? And they said because they needed to save back even further than AutoCAD could save back, which I thought was really interesting. But the takeaway from this is I just want you to understand the data integrity of DraftSight is amazing. All right, it does a great job at saving DWG files along with even more file formats, once again, than AutoCAD, including the ability to create shape files, which if you make custom line types is amazing and fantastic. And it also saves the two different types of DXF files, which is also important, but that's beside the point. Okay, what else have I got for you? The other thing that we should talk about is the size of DraftSight and the hardware requirements, because I did mention earlier that AutoCAD is almost 40 years old. And one of the, the pros and cons with that is that it has kept almost all of its commands since the beginning of AutoCAD time. They do not like to, Autodesk does not like to delete commands. There could be one person somewhere who is still using a specific command, or maybe they put it in a menu or a script file or something, so they don't like to remove commands, even though there's probably hardly anybody that ever uses those commands. And consequently, AutoCAD's become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It takes a lot of disk space and a lot of RAM to run. And by the way, the same with LT, okay? Because, LT, they just turn off features in there so that things don't work. It also requires a lot of disk space and a lot of RAM to run, in case you're an LT user that is watching today. And DraftSight, we were able to create DraftSight from scratch, right? We didn't have to deal with these legacy commands that were needed 40 years ago, right? We were able to do everything based on newer technology, and let's just grab those commands that people need today, and let's focus on the core essentials. The commands you need are going to be in there, but maybe you're not using the change command. You guys probably don't even know what that command is. It's got to be still in AutoCAD. So obviously less disk space, less RAM. And what does that mean for you? It means a lot of things. It means that you can actually get away with less hardware. So I have two different computers. I have like a serious computer that I have at home. If I'm doing a lot of heavy duty lifting with DraftSight, I probably would be more apt to use that. But if I'm need to do a quick presentation on the road, I travel with a super lightweight wannabe computer. DraftSight works on that too. Who knew? So you can get away with a lot less hardware, which I think is fantastic. And look how happy this guy is. He was able to experience a quick transition. You will absolutely be able to do that. And I hope you could see that as I was talking about how it speaks AutoCAD and it's very similar. And you saw that as I went into the software. You should have been able to feel right at home in no time at all, which I think is super important. And as I like to say, we have had millions of downloads of DraftSight. And I am a big fan of strength in numbers. And I like to know that there are a lot of people out there that are using DraftSight. And there are a lot of people out there. There are people that you don't even know that are using DraftSight. I guarantee you, you're getting DWG files. You're just thinking that they're using AutoCAD, but they're using DraftSight. So there is strength in numbers. That makes me feel good inside. And DraftSight is not going to go anywhere either. That's another thing that's important to note, because why would it? That would be ridiculous. It's a very successful product. Now let's talk about those cool tools that only exist inside of DraftSight that you're going to wish that you want to have. Oh yeah, I can tell you that for sure, especially this first one. In fact, I could just stop at this first one and you'd be like, Lynn, I'm sold. Where do I sign up? This is my favorite tool in any CAD program. I don't know why it doesn't exist inside of AutoCAD yet. Maybe they'll keep hearing me and they'll add it. Power trim. So when we go into the trim command inside of AutoCAD, what do we have to do, right? We have to select the cutting edges. Or if you know the command well enough, you can hit an extra enter and everything becomes a cutting edge, even though nothing highlights. And then you hit and then you go. So inside of power trim, guess what? You just go into the command and you just start trimming away. Just trim. Just go. You don't have to worry about any cutting edges. I don't have time for that nonsense. I have no time for cutting edges. You hold the shift key down, it switches into extend. That is a powerful command. And when I was at Autodesk, I asked for this command. I begged for this command. I finally wrote a Lisp routine so I could make my own wannabe power trim command. It wasn't quite as cool, but nevertheless. Power trim. What else you got, Lynn? LTB Layer. I mentioned this tool. It was on the status bar inside of DraftSight. I said, I know you don't know what this is right now, but you're going to want it. This allows you to pre-assign layers to specific objects or entities inside of DraftSight. So you can say, hey, I want all my text to go on a text layer. I want all my hatching to go on a hatch layer. I want all of my viewports to go on a viewport layer so it displays but doesn't print. I know you want that. I want all of my dimensions to go on a specific dimensioning layer. Whatever it is, you can, any object, all the objects are listed here. Every one, you can tell every single one which layer you want it to land on if you want. You don't have to. And if you decide you don't want that predefined layer, you see that little checkbox right there, just turn that off anytime you want. So instead of doing the layer hokey pokey, you don't have to do that nearly as much because of this great command called LTB Layer. You are going to love this. You're going to have feature envy for sure. Now you can do some of this in AutoCAD. You can set some of these ahead of time, but they're like all over the place. They're all over the map inside of AutoCAD. Good luck finding them all. It's not organized, not easy to find. Auto dimensioning. AutoCAD has some great dimensioning tools, but I used to joke when I was demoing them that I just wanted one where I could window everything in my drawing and it would just automatically put all the dimensions on there. So this is close to that in that you do create what's called a bounding box, which is a window essentially, and then it just dimensions them. You give it some heads up. Do you want baseline? Do you want continue? Do you want ordinate? You do tell it what you want. Do you want them to the right? Do you want them to the left? You show them which way do you want them to go. But pretty much it does auto dimension your drawings. Another wish granted. I like that. I love it when my wishes are granted. What else we got? Oh, image tracer. This did not used to be on my cool tool list until I got all these people tweeting me saying, hey, Lynn, why don't you talk about image tracer? You're missing the coolest of all the commands. This allows you to take a JPEG or an image file and bring it in and it will convert it to vector, just like you see right here. You give it just some basic information and it will convert it, as you can see here, lines, arcs, whatever you want. How much time is that going to save you? I know you want that. Now, AutoCAD does have raster design, but it's like a separate product, right? And it's a little, has a lot more to it than this does. This was very, very simple. It's just a tool that's built right into DraftSight. So that's another cool tool you're gonna wish that you had. Image tracer. Think of all the time you'll save. Imagine like a scanned image or something like that. Now, for those of you who use SolidWorks, you're familiar with the gesture wheel. And they brought the gesture wheel from SolidWorks down into DraftSight. Remember, SolidWorks, of course, is the company that DraftSight cometh from. So we were lucky to get that cool tool. And I'll tell you, I have become a gesture wheel addict, like you have no idea. So it's super simple to use. You hold down the right mouse button and this wheel will pop up just like you see there in the visual. And then you just move it in the direction of the command that you're after. You can set it up so it has 4 commands on it if you're not a good shot, or 8 if you are a good shot. And it's very easy to set up what those commands are. You have a super simple dialog box like you see here on the left. You can see I put power trim on mine. Why wouldn't you have power trim on it? And now I think I'm going to put a TB layer maybe, or actually TB layer is on the status line. I don't need that, but maybe you want to put save on there so you can get to it really, really quickly. As you can see, I have on there. It's up to you, whatever you want to be able to get to very, very quickly. But once you start using it, now this is something you're not used to doing in AutoCAD, you have to force yourself to start to use this and try it. But then you'll go, how did I live without that? You will. If you download the trial, I want you to promise me you'll try it. So what about your customization? It would be a terrible thing if you did a whole bunch of customizing and then found out that you had to do it all over again. Oh yeah, you would cry. You'd be like, this DraftSight's terrible. I don't want that DraftSight. So let's talk about what comes across and what doesn't, right? If you make the move to DraftSight. All right, Lisp. No problem. Visual Lisp, no problem. Your menu files, like your CUIs, absolutely. MNUs, if you have an MNU, I am impressed. That's an old release of AutoCAD, but they'll come across. Line types, hatch patterns, template files, we already talked about that. Fonts, and any Lisp routines that are supporting your menu files, yes, 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 but there is one no. Oh no, the aliases. Dang it. There's always one, isn't there? Unfortunately, if you have a bunch of aliases set up, so maybe you change C for circle to something else, for example, you will find that the alias, the PGP file, does not come across. I would argue that of all of these that are hard to recreate, the PGP file would be the one I would select. The reason for that, let me tell you why, is because I told you that DraftSight speaks AutoCAD, and they did that in the PGP file. So consequently, we wouldn't want to just bring your PGP file across only to find out that it landed on top of some of the things, maybe the speaking AutoCAD part. Like it or not, that's the deal. So you will have to recreate the PGP file. Come on, that wasn't that hard, hopefully. So I'm sorry about that if that's a big deal for you. Something for you to think about, though. Trying to be honest here. And you should know, though, that it has a very robust API. Even the least expensive of all the DraftSight products supports the API, supports Lisp, unlike LT, right? And so very, very, very impressive, robust API. Supports all different types of languages, which is wonderful. So let's talk about what's new in DraftSight 2022 that I think earlier I said came through the window, which I'm not sure what that means exactly. But let's talk about sheet sets. Now, I'm a big sheet set user, and I use it all the time to organize different layout tabs and different drawing files, especially when I'm demoing. And I know that, and definitely a lot of power users love sheet sets, but now it supports subsets. So you have the sheets and you have the subsets that go with it. It supports associative tables. And that is really, really powerful. You'll actually see that here in this little video that's showing. So you could create a table on the very first page, like this drawing sheet list table, and it's associative. So as you clicked on each of the links, it would take you to that page or take you to that layout, which is very, very powerful. It could take you to a detail. Lots and lots of power when you get into sheet sets. I'm a big fan of sheet sets. If you don't use them, regardless of whether you make the move to DraftSight, you should take a look at sheet sets. And then next, but definitely not least, how about importing PDFs? And now those already exist. This feature existed in 2021. It just got a little bit more advanced in 2022. But they really kicked it up, and they've done a better job than you might find in your AutoCAD, in that you can bring in multiple pages, which is fantastic. It supports bringing in more than one sheet at a time of a PDF, and you can do batch processing, so that if you had like a whole directory of PDFs that you wanted to convert over to drawing files, you could do that inside of DraftSight, which is very, very powerful. Now, friendly reminder, right? You can't, the PDF file has to come from a CAD program to begin with, right? It has to come from a CAD program in order to have that information. So it's not going to automatically have a layering system in place. If it's like a scanned image, right? It's not going to know about layers. It needs to come from a CAD file to begin with in order to be a PDF that's super intelligent and has vectors and things like that, okay? Blocks and all that good stuff, just so we're on the same page there. Also new in DraftSight 2022, so you could bring dynamic blocks across from AutoCAD, no problem. You could use them, you can manipulate them on the screen, like this door here. You would be able to change the different directions, you'd be able to change the sizes and all that, but you could not create them inside of DraftSight, which was unfortunate, and people wanted to be able to create custom blocks, or dynamic blocks as they're called in AutoCAD. We call them custom blocks. Once again, fraternal versus identical. So you'll see in DraftSight 22, which granted, now you can create custom blocks as they're called inside of DraftSight. Fraternal, not identical. So that was a big win, and that's exciting to have that come through the DraftSight 2022 window. I'm sticking with that phrase. Pack and go. You want to take your drawing file, you wanted to send it to someone else. If you just send them the DWG, you often leave things behind. Don't we know that, right? You might leave XREFs behind or images behind. This makes sure that everything gets packed up and you can easily send everything needed for the drawing file on its way to somebody else. Or maybe you just want it for yourself to take home, or whatever the scenario is. Pack and go is added in. And for those of you who do get into some pretty intense curves, splines have been improved in 2022. You now have the ability to draw splines that go directly through the vertices. That option didn't exist before, and you have some additional editing capabilities. So you have more control over splines. You used to just be able to pull them towards, to weight them towards the vertice. Now you have more control. I'll give you a second so you can see this other curve on the other side. You'll be able to see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. There you go. See, look at all those vertices. Pretty sure you could get what you wanted if you had that. Okay. Now, which DraftSight do you want? First of all, you should know that there's like a 2D version and there's a 2D and a 3D. Are you using any of the 3D capabilities in AutoCAD? Oh, well, then you're going to probably want to go with Premium. But if you're just using the 2D tools, then you probably are going to be fine with Professional. The names are a little similar, so I want to make sure you understand the difference. Professional is really just 2D. And the Premium is adding in that 3D capability, all right? First of all, you got to get that straight, Professional and Premium, all right? In addition to that, you need to kind of make some other decisions. Are you just going to, it's just you or just a couple people in your company, a small company, you can really just go and buy online. You're just going to be loading it onto your desktop. You can just buy online. You don't need network licenses. I mean, maybe you want perpetual. That's a possibility. If you do decide you want perpetual, though, then you're going to be calling a reseller and talking to them about it, all right? But in most cases, if you're a small company, you probably just want to go online and just purchase it there. That's the least expensive choice. And I'll show you what the prices are, even though I don't like to do that because I don't like to be salesy. But if you want network licenses, or if you want a perpetual license, which now you know means you want to own it, then you're going to pick up a phone, you're going to contact a reseller and talk to them about it. And they'll give you all the pricing structures, which is too much to really show you on here. Or if you are like really advanced and you want to just go the whole cloud route, we also have the capability for you to store all of your data up in the cloud and to take advantage of everything that the cloud portfolio has to offer. We have something called the 3D Experience Platform, which is a very powerful cloud platform that allows you to work with others, of course, to collaborate with others online. It has, oh my gosh, there's so many great things that you can do with the 3D Experience Platform. That would be an entire presentation all into itself, which maybe we'll do another time. But to truly collaborate and to keep that data management up in the cloud so you can access it anytime, anywhere from any device. So then you're talking about the 3D experience DraftSight. Once again, you got to pick up the phone and call your reseller, all right? Okay, so let's look at pricing, or at least a little bit. Now, if it's just you or just a few people in your office and you are just into 2D, you can probably get away with DraftSight Professional, which is less than $200 a year. So piece of cake, right? What's that? Just a few lattes a month. That's the way I like to look at it. and I would just go online and I would just purchase it up there. I think that's the easiest route to take, easy peasy. Now, if you are into 3D, and then you need to start looking at DraftSight Premium. Still buy it online. I do want to mention to you though that there are a few commands, a few features that exist in DraftSight Premium that have not made their way into Professional yet. They probably will eventually, but they're not there yet. PDF import, which I know is very popular. Those custom blocks, those new custom blocks, right? Those also have not made their way into DraftSight Professional yet. But wink, wink, they probably will eventually. And something called 2D constraints, which in the mechanical world you're very familiar with. This is the ability to basically manage your geometry you can manage it with dimensions. You can also manage it with these things called constraints. So I want this circle to always be the same size as this circle. I want to make sure these two lines are always parallel or always perpendicular. Or you can actually start to drive the geometry with dimensions, which is very, very, very powerful. So there's a lot of capabilities in there with constraints. Only really advanced users tend to use it, by the way, but you should take a look at those too. Those are very powerful. And of course, once you get into perpetual licenses, network licenses, or cloud, that's when you need to pick up the phone, you need to call your reseller. I can't tell you how much it is because there's so many different variables going on there. So call your reseller. I've got a link there, solidworks.com/reseller, and or you can just Google SolidWorks reseller, and you can Google anything and figure it out, right? Here's the part that I think is the most important. I don't think you should listen to me. I think that you should try everything for yourself. So no matter which of those DraftSights you want, network license, perpetual, cloud, whatever, I believe you should try it for yourself first. And get in there, try it with your own two hands, and open up some drawing files, take a look at your customizing, and try it for yourself. You can download a trial for 30 days. You don't need a credit card. It's not going to charge you at the end of 30 days if you forget, thank heavens, and you can see for yourself. So I do think that's really the right thing to do. And that is what I recommend. And no matter what, unless I'm just like the most amazing salesperson ever, I guess, but I still think you should try it for yourself because I want you to be happy. So hopefully I showed you that you absolutely can use DraftSight for your CAD needs. I got a picture of the money tree over there. We don't have money trees. I don't know anybody who has a money tree. They'd make a lot of money if they had a money tree, but they wouldn't need it because they have a money tree. That's why nobody sells them, because they don't need it once they have a money tree. But just so you know, I absolutely do believe it's a best-in-class 2D and 3D CAD product. It's got some great 3D tools in there. And it has that DWG compatibility. You can maintain your productivity, and it's an easy transition. As I mentioned to you saw that guy back in the easy chair, that's going to be you. Although you can tell your boss it's going to take you a long time to learn it if you want. That's up to you. That's not up to me. He'll never know. I won't tell him. And you know, there are a lot of options, so you can maximize your IT investment and free up your CAD budget because you know you're saving all that money. You can spend that on other things, and it also is scalable. So you can do the network option, you can do perpetual, you can move up to cloud. Maybe that's something in your company you guys are talking about making the move over to the cloud. That's something that DraftSight can do. So it has it all. It's got it all. Now, what else? What now? All right. First of all, tell me that you will download the trial and try it for yourself. So I'm not responsible. If you have any more questions, please feel free to contact me. There's my email address right there. I just gave it to you so you can contact me. And then if you want more information about the enterprise versions, network, perpetual, cloud, or if you just want to talk to somebody too, you can contact your local reseller. That would be a SolidWorks reseller at solidworks.com/reseller. And I believe that is it. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for spending all this time with me. And I hope you live happily ever after in the land of DraftSight. How about that? Thanks again for your time.